Dave, thanks. More concerns over flock license plate reading cameras tonight in Neenah. That's where residents heard from a company spokesperson hoping to clear the air about the use of their cameras. In a first alert update, Drew Best has both sides as some people push back.
If you are here tonight to support the end of the flock camera system, I would ask you to quietly stand.
Neenah residents sending a clear message to the city over their contract with Flock Safety. Dozens taking a stand in front of the company's director of public trust.
Our car isn't just a plate number, it's an extension of ourselves and our personality. And tracking my every move in and out of town is not just my car, it's me, it's you, it's everybody here.
Flock does not ask. Neenah does not ask. There is no opt-out, there is no consent, there is only collection.
With concern growing over the company's data security and surveillance capabilities, Flock Safety's Max Weinstein addressed those worries about the company to the city's Public Services and Safety Committee.
That concept of a national privatized database is objectively scary. If that were the truth, I would not be working at Flock.
Weinstein argued their license plate reading cameras have end-to-end encryption and do not track people or vehicles, sell customer data, or use facial recognition. Committee members also asked him about alleged hacking incidents. Weinstein denied they were hacked, but says video of one of the incidents shows a non-secured Flock camera get switched to a, quote, person following mode.
The reason that exists is for parks. Parks use it all the time. Parks close at 6 p.m. If there's activity in that park that necessitates a police response after that park is closed, the camera can alert to an incident in that park. It does not track beyond that.
These cameras are one minor software update from phoning home in order to get facial recognition and people tracking built into the cameras already.
The committee did not vote on any recommendation to the council, instead choosing to continue the discussion at a later date. The city remains under contract with Flock Safety through fall of 2028. Reporting in Neenah, Drew Best, Action 2 News.